Yep, you read that right. On March 12th, 2025, my husband, Mr. Grains and Grit, was actually shot multiple times by our neighbor. Now, what does this have to do with this channel? Whole grains, home milling, bread, all the things. Well, I'm about to tell you. Hey y'all, welcome back to Grains and Grit. My name is Felicia, and on this channel, I talk all things real whole grains, all from a biblical perspective. I teach you how to be milling your wheat, consuming real whole grains, cooking from scratch, baking that bread, all the things, and more. So if you've been around for a while, you may have already heard of that, or you may be new or just landed on this video. But yes, in March of 2025, as of this video, 6 weeks ago, my husband was shot multiple times by one of our neighbors. Yes, it is an ongoing investigation, so I cannot comment really much about that, but it did happen. This was an issue that we've been having with our neighbor for over a year. To be honest, my husband should not be alive for how many times he was shot and everything that happened. It is by God's grace and mercy that he is still here and alive today. And I do think that consuming real whole grains and real bread for over the past decade has a lot to do with it. But before I tell you how it affected him now with being shot, we actually have to go back. And this is basically going to be a bread testimony, something I haven't shared before of how bread actually, real whole grains and milling our wheat actually has affected our life and our health. So I actually started milling our wheat and grains over a decade ago, basically when we had only been married for about a year and a half or so. And that's when friends introduced us to Sue Becker. We listened to the CD. We said, absolutely, yes, we're going to do this. And we started milling our bread. And it was also one of those things where we were also in our 20s. We were pretty young. And at the time, we didn't think there were any health issues going on, because I think in typical 20-year-old format, you think I'm totally fine. And looking back, especially my husband, he was not fine. Basically, what he had going on is he would have bad ulcers in his stomach. He had digestive issues. He would frequently have very, very bad heartburn on a regular basis. And he also started having vision problems, having to go to the eye doctor. He had to get glasses shortly after that we were married, due to his vision starting to go bad. His heartburn was so bad that we had to start getting him on Prilosec, because just Tums and regular things were just no longer doing it. He also was experiencing really bad seasonal allergies. Every time that pine pollen season came around, it was really bad. He was stacking like Benadryl, Zyrtec D, I mean, the really, really heavy stuff, and he would be stacking it on top of each other and still having issues with everything when all that pollen here in Florida just dusted everything. And if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I mean. Okay, so what changes did we see when we first started milling our grains? And it may actually surprise you, because with my husband, his symptoms did not just go away. Unfortunately, his heartburn actually got a little worse. It took a good 6 months for his heartburn to actually go away, but it actually did increase a little bit when we first started milling. And we have a few theories about that. One, my husband made a good point, is that anytime you try to get off of a white powdery substance, which white flour is, white sugar, cocaine, anything like that, your body is gonna freak out a bit, especially whenever he's gone through a lifetime with very little fiber in his diet. And I think that was kind of the part two to that, is his body was now getting real fiber, real nutrients, and it kind of freaked out a little bit. So I do believe that he had some healing to do with his gut, especially with his gut health, especially considering the ulcers, the heartburn, the allergies, all of those now have been linked to good or bad gut health. So that's one thing that I would like to encourage y'all, for those of you, because I've seen these comments before, if I've started milling and then I now have heartburn, or my digestive issues got worse. And I think, or like at least with my husband, it just needed time to get real nutrients in and heal that body. So it kind of got worse before it got better. And that again was about 6 months before that kind of remedied itself. Thankfully, my husband was very much on board with the message. We definitely believed that this was food that God has given us to eat. This is what we should be eating. And so he kind of just sucked it up and plowed on through, and it eventually completely cleared up. And since then, he never gets heartburn anymore, really, at all. So long as we are, eating real food on a more consistent basis, he's been just fine. Over the years, his seasonal allergies have all pretty much gone away. Nowadays, whenever that pollen comes and it's really bad pollen season, he's usually pretty good. Every now and then, when it's really bad, he may need to take a Benadryl. That's it. Nothing really major. Nothing like it used to be, where he was stacking multiple high doses of drugs just to get through it. So that over a few years has certainly helped a lot. And then another crazy thing that we were not expecting is his vision actually improved. A couple years after we started milling, he went back to the doctor and they actually had to back off on his prescription. And they've backed off a couple more times, where now he's pretty much on the lowest prescription whenever he wears his glasses. And it's mainly because, when you're driving at night or it's rainy, to be able to read road signs, just to be a little bit safer. That's pretty much it. But as far as his vision goes, that actually improved. Now, we haven't just changed the bread in our lives. It certainly started that way. But soon after that, we started homesteading. My husband started to get more active with his lifestyle, where he was gardening and he was walking more. He wasn't just sitting at a desk for 8 hours a day. He's not a gym rat or anything, but he'll work out his arms, do push-ups, maybe 2 or 3 times a week. Not really a big deal, but he's really taking great care of his body. Our diet has really cleared up a lot, and there you go. Now, one thing I will point out is, granted, he just turned 41 years old, and for the past few years, I guess just aging, he does have a little bit, he calls it his little wheat belly. And I haven't done a video about this, about our perspective of fat these days, but he did have a little bit of a belly. He was not obese. He wasn't even really overweight, but he had a little bit of that. And that actually came in handy to have, because he would always say, well, I'm just saving it in case there's ever a famine. And boy, did that come, because now fast forward over a decade later, and on March 12th of this year, he was shot multiple times, predominantly in his abdomen, by our neighbor. And because of that, first of all, he should not even be alive. He shouldn't have even made it out of the woods alive. The Lord was there with him, keeping him alive. And the fact that the bullets missed, he was millimeters away from the main artery being shot, which you have a minute to live if that gets hit. And some of his major organs, like his heart, his liver, were not hit incredibly enough. But you get shot that many times, it's very, very serious. And they life flighted him to the local trauma hospital, which happens to be one of the best in the States. And we had some of the best doctors working on him. And this is where I believe that especially the bread that we consume, the whole grains, and our lifestyle changes really, really, really benefited him. Because when he first got to the hospital, he had immediately rushed into surgery. That was 4 hours. And during that surgery, despite needing pretty much all of his blood replaced because he had lost a lot of blood, his blood pressure was great. His heart rate was excellent. He did have a punctured lung that collapsed his lung. But once they got that lung inflated, his oxygen levels went right back up to normal. They did put him on a ventilator just basically eliminating one less thing that his body had to do in that moment. But even then, his breathing was pretty good. And so he made it through that 4-hour surgery like a champ. The doctors were quite surprised that he did so well. On top of that, during or right after that surgery, one of the nurses asked me if he was actually on drugs, which, if you know my husband, is absurd to ask. No, definitely not. He was not on drugs. And she said, oh, okay, because he actually woke up during that first surgery. He doesn't remember, thank the Lord, and they quickly got him back down. I later found out that it's because he was so healthy going in. He's a big guy, 6 feet, but he's more muscular tone, and the fact that he was in such good shape, meant that he needed actually a little bit more to sedate him than, I guess, someone who would be in less of a good shape. So I found that very interesting. And then we found out basically what the damage was, and the doctors got together a plan to go the big surgery the very next day, which was an extremely high-risk procedure. I was told he would only have a 25% survival rate because there can be a lot of complications that can go wrong, because this was a big abdominal type surgery where his digestive system kind of had to be reconfigured in a way because of the damage that the bullets had caused. So it was a very high risky procedure. They were basically going through like, here's plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D, plan E. And they also didn't know how long he would be able to sustain to be able to be in a long surgery with all the trauma that he went through. Well, praise the Lord, he was able to make it through a 6-hour long surgery like a champ. His vitals were great. He never needed assistance with high blood pressure, with his blood pressure, with his heart, with his lungs. His vitals were totally stable the entire time, which is incredible considering the trauma he went through. And then the surgery was done, and he was still in very critical condition for several days because things could still go wrong. And praise the Lord, he healed in remarkable time. The doctors were astounded by how quickly and well he was recovering. Everything was going so well. The digestive part of things, everything was staying connected, the stitches held, all of this stuff, it was working, but each and every day he was improving remarkably well. No complications from that surgery. Now, I do believe that this is threefold. One, we had some of literally the best doctors in the state working on him. Number two, the Lord was just with him and the Lord was helping him heal. But number three, the big thing is he made it easy on God. The fact that he didn't come in with all of these digestive issues, health problems, allergies. He was as healthy as a horse, basically. And God was like, no problem, and I know that God can perform miracles even if you don't come in very healthy, but he was living a life that was pleasing to the Lord, doing his best to take care of the body that God has given him. And I think God has rewarded him for that, being able to heal so incredibly well, especially considering how much work had to be done on his digestive system, which leads to his little wheat belly, because my husband lost 25 pounds in 3 weeks, which is crazy. So thank the Lord, he had a little bit to lose on him. Now, he also lost muscle as well, but imagine if he came in with, say he was underweight or like zero body fat, that could have put him in really critical condition just for being underweight. So if you got a little bit on you, it's okay. I'm not talking about obesity, but you got a little bit on you. You never know when you might need it. And in this case, it helped him out. So that's basically it. Again, I do believe that the Lord has been working in miraculous ways in his life. Now, the one last thing that health-wise is wrong with my husband that bread and diet could not fix was the fact that he does have a spinal cord injury, which has resulted in paralysis from the waist down. So that is something that's just, he was shot with bullets, and that definitely can happen, and one damaged one of his vertebrae. So that is our current state. He is paralyzed from the waist down, but I do believe that the Lord is going to completely heal him one day. And, I think being able to be on the best diet possible, taking care of his body as best as we can, certainly can help that. I do believe that that's definitely not going to hurt him. That's definitely going to help him, especially as his digestive system still gets a little bit stronger and more back to normal after being reconfigured and everything. So I ask for prayers actually for that. And I thank you for everyone who has already supported us, reached out to us, donated. Your prayers we most covet. And I do ask that you also pray for absolute complete healing of my husband with his spinal cord injury, and that he will walk again. we have a long road ahead of us. We really do. But the Lord is with us. He has been good. Now, do know a few things about the investigation. I can tell you that the man who shot my husband is in jail with no bond, awaiting trial. So praise the Lord for that, that we are safe as a family in that regard. So I ask that you pray for the investigation and that justice will be done. And also, if you would like to keep up with updates about my husband's condition, I'm really not going to be posting a lot on this channel because that's just not what this channel is for. But I do have a Support Now page where I will post updates there. So I'll link all that down in the description box below. So if you're curious, you can follow along. And I also ask for the prayers that we're needing as well, so you can follow there. So I do plan on coming back to this channel, posting more regularly. Again, I thank you all for your patience. If you are new, just know that I do have a whole playlist of getting started with grains, why you should be milling, whole grains, so on and so forth. And then of course I do have a free home milling newbie guide for y'all that will be linked in the description box below if you're new, and it tells you where to go, all the things. And as always, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next week. Bye.